Dungeons & Dragons is a game known for its range of adventures, from epic battles with dragons to intricate political intrigue to just an all-out dungeon hack and slash. But what is often overlooked is the potential for horror. A few days ago, I did a poll asking what type of horror you guys preferred in your role-playing games. Atmospheric dread, where the situation slowly builds and the unknown is more frightening than the known, won by a landslide over jump scares, psychological horror, and survival horror. GameMasters here, and whether you're a dungeon master, storyteller, or game master looking to spook your players, or if you're a player eager to immerse yourself in a dark and unsettling world, horror can add a thrilling element to your role-playing experience. And I'm going to ask you up front, when this video is over, comment down below as to what's been the most effective experience you've had with horror in your role-playing game. Role-playing games have a rich history of horror, from Dungeons & Dragons setting Ravenloft and the ever-nightmarish The Tomb of Horrors to, well, really anything from Call of Cthulhu. Horror has been a part of role-playing games for decades, but what can make horror in games like Dungeons & Dragons effective for your players? Atmosphere. Much like a horror movie, atmosphere is key. You'll describe the eerie silence of a decrepit mansion, the flickering candlelight and the spooky shadows it can cast, or the distant howling of unseen creatures. Your players' imaginations, it's going to fill in all the rest. Suspense. Horror thrives on suspense. Use slow reveals and hints to keep your players on edge. Give them just enough information to make their minds race with terrifying possibilities. Monsters. Most role-playing games have a vast array of horrifying monsters, from zombies and vampires to Lovecraftian great old ones, abominations, and even cosmic horrors. Utilize them creatively to instill fear in your players. But remember, sometimes what they can't see is scarier than what they can. So don't be afraid to let those monsters make some fun sounds from the darkened and shadowy corners. Mystery. A compelling horror story often revolves around a mystery that needs unraveling. Use cryptic clues and unsettling encounters to lure your players deeper into that enigma. Honestly, I get a lot of inspiration from the classic Scooby-Doo cartoons, only the monsters turn out to be real and not just someone wearing a mask trying to get away with something. Except for that one time I had Jason Voorhees stalking the players. Real fast, before we jump into some tips for crafting a horror-themed campaign, I want to give a shout out to these awesome horror supporters. Their contributions make it so that I can ignore those emails asking me to do sponsored ads. Nobody likes those. If you'd like to see how you can help become a Patreon or YouTube member, I'll leave a link down in the description, and of course you'll have my eternal thanks. If you are a DM looking to create a horror-themed campaign, consider these tips. Set expectations. Before the campaign begins, talk to your players about the type and intensity of horror they're comfortable with. Make sure everyone is on the same page to ensure an enjoyable experience for everyone. Choose a dark setting. Select a campaign setting or create one that lends itself to horror. Ravenloft, or something with gothic cities, haunted forests, and isolated villages, those are all perfect choices. Develop complex characters. Populate your world with NPCs who have rich backstories and hidden secrets. Ambiguous morality adds depth to your horror narrative, and who knows, perhaps one or more of those NPCs may actually be the mad scientist that is pulling all the strings. Use senses. Engage your players' senses to immerse them in the horror. Describe foul odors, unsettling sounds, and gruesome sights. Pace yourself. Don't rush the horror elements. Let tension build gradually and save the most terrifying reveal for pivotal moments. Incorporate psychological horror. Challenge your players' minds with moral dilemmas, illusions, and encounters that blur the line between reality and madness. Physical setting. Don't hesitate to set up mood lighting and low, hauntingly spooky background music. That kind of ambiance can crank the horror element way up. And if you're enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. As a player in your horror campaign, there are things that you can do to enhance the experience. Embrace fear. Don't be afraid to let your character experience fear. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it can lead to powerful role-playing moments. Stay in character. React as your character would, even if it means making choices that aren't optimal for a gaming perspective. This can lead to a more engaging and memorable experience. Sometimes when we are scared, we panic. Well, your character can panic too. Work as a party. Horror campaigns often require players to rely on each other for support and problem solving. Teamwork is essential to survival, and whatever you do, don't split up the party, and don't ever try to investigate an area by yourself, and never say, I'll be right back. Incorporating horror into your D&D campaign or other role-playing games can be a spine-tingling, heart-pounding experience for everyone, for both the DM and the players. It adds a level of excitement to the game that explores our inner fear and keeps everyone engaged and invested in the story. So whether your game takes you to the dark depths of a haunted dungeon or you're unraveling a sinister mystery, embrace that fear and let the horror captivate your imagination. Just remember the number one rule in incorporating horror into your role-playing games. Never, under any circumstances, should you ever